Okay, so this is going to be the next really quick video on the Enlightenment. And again, this one's not very long at all. But the important thing about the Enlightenment is, again, we're still under the Renaissance, but everything that happens during the Enlightenment impacts us until really the early part of the 20th century ish, more so from the 17th, 18th, and early part of the 19th century. But oh man, from the 17th and 18th century, everything in the Enlightenment really impacts this. So while we may not necessarily talk about the Enlightenment, I may not say, hey, this is the Enlightenment. What happens, the revolutions that happen, the monarchs that fall, all of this is because of the Enlightenment. Okay, so that's important to remember. Again, your vocabulary, there's not a lot in here, and there's not really like I've got the people in here, but I didn't really put like what they were important for here because it's in the PowerPoints, but just make sure you know. Okay. All right. So the scientific revolution will lead to the Enlightenment because it's the same people, really. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, like you don't see Francis Bacon over here, but it's because of Francis Bacon that Voltaire and Montesquieu and all these other people will kind of get these ideas. And so it all kind of meshes together. The Enlightenment will see an explosion of thinking and reasoning because the scientific method is applied to all aspects of life. Now, you'll think that it can't be because it's not, it's not a scientific thing, but it can be. Because here's the thing, and I'll use the creation of the United States as an example. When the United States was created, when we did the Declaration of Independence and when we did the new government, people said this can't work. You can't do this. This is not going to happen. And then it did. And so other countries then went, well, I wonder if we can do that. I wonder if we can build like that. And so they used a type of scientific method to do it. And then they built countries. So it works. Now, it may not be an exact scientific method like you would do to create like a new medicine or something, but it was along the same lines. It's also called the Age of Reason. And what we're really going to see for the next 9 weeks, because we're even going to talk about it after Christmas, if we're here, is how much it affects politics, economics, and religion. Guys, the Enlightenment will totally change everything we know about for politics and religion. Because remember, we're still right in the middle of the Reformation, because this is the Renaissance, and everything changes. Old customs are found to be flawed and challenging the old ways and in ideas, and ideas and practices of absolute monarchs and church officials are being called into question. So we're questioning what's going on, and we're questioning why are we listening to these people, and can we change it? During the Enlightenment, people will begin to apply rules to society, social, political, and economic policies to help solve the problem of humankind. So we're wondering, can we help people who are poor? Can we help people who are hungry? Can we help change the politics? Can we help change the economic policies? And we can. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. We'll see that like in France. Thinkers in France use a scientific method to help come up with new forms of government and new ideas for law and society. Ish. I mean, poor France. We'll see with the French Revolution. It was a mess, but we'll get there. Okay. The Enlightenment brought about new theories and how governments should be run. Many ideas were based on the rights of individuals. This was new. This is a new concept. Individuals have rights because we've been ruled by kings. Kings said, you don't have rights. I tell you if you have rights. So this is brand new. Do people have rights? And yes, they do. All right, so we're going to talk about our people. Montesquieu. Montesquieu hated absolute monarchy. He argued for a separation of powers. He said that would end corruption in government. I'm kind of skewed on our government right now. Um, it should end corruption in government, and it does because it helps keep a balance of power. Now, it doesn't say that the politicians aren't corrupt, but his ideas will help influence the building of new governments, including the United States. So, what we have is we have a legislative branch, which is the Congress. They make the laws. We have the judicial branch, which is your judges, your lawyers, your Supreme Court, who should uphold the laws. And let's talk about that for a minute, because we've just had a new justice come in, and people are real scared about that because it tips the Supreme Court justices highly into the conservative favor. And I get where people are really concerned about that. And then some people are really happy about that. We, as a justice, they should be impartial. And they're not always. They should rule by the Constitution. And they don't always. They rule by their feelings, their political party. And I disagree with that personally. I think they should rule by the Constitution. But I think sometimes it would be hard. I think it would be hard to not rule by your political party standing sometimes, or by your heart or by your feelings. Again, I think I disagree with it. I think you should rule by the Constitution. But we just had a new justice come in, and a lot of people are concerned with that. And, my thing on it is that's why we do have the separation of powers, where one branch doesn't get too big over the other one. The problem is that there's really no one to rein in too much of the Supreme Court. Like, Congress really can't go and vote out, vote in or vote something that the Supreme Court always does. Sometimes they can overrule it, not always. And I'm getting into things that I really can't say too much about because that's not my forte. But the biggest thing I always say is, because we have the separation of powers, we have the executive branch, which is the president, the judicial branch, which is the people who uphold the laws, and then the legislative branch who make the laws, is that as long as we have that and we have our Constitution, regardless of who's in power, we always should be good. Should be good. So, we just need to always keep that in mind, that this is something that, we need to fight to keep our Constitution there, and need to fight to keep our as even as we can. I think between the two, actually, I would love for if we could get rid of parties altogether. And that's my opinion. But I probably can get in a lot of trouble if any parents see this, and I don't mean to. I don't put my political beliefs on here. I never ever tell students how to vote. I don't ever share my political beliefs with any students. I encourage them to vote, and I encourage them to vote how they want to vote. I just encourage them to know the issues before they vote, and not just to vote blindly. So let me just say that I never, ever, ever want to influence a student on how to vote or what political party to vote on. I want them to vote how they wish to vote, as long as they know the issues. So let me just end that, and let me just go from there. I did put something in here about the Electoral College, because that's a big thing right now, that we need to get rid of the Electoral College. I'll just leave that. There's nothing in there on notes that you need. Okay. All right. Voltaire. Voltaire was critical of the French government and the Catholic Church. He spoke out against the slave trade, inequality among the masses, the genders, the rich and the poor, and the corruption that he saw. Most of his ideas will find their way into plays and books, and he was imprisoned and later exiled. And he was a huge proponent of free speech. Now, why he's going to be important is because his ideas all are about the Enlightenment. And he says, that we need a change with kings. We need a change in the government. We need a change with the Catholic Church. Diderot will be one of the most important people also because he creates something that was never been before, an encyclopedia. You guys have Google. I had the encyclopedia, which was a set of books that I looked things up on. This was a goal to change the common way of thinking by educating people. For the first time, someone could look in a book and find out about animals from another continent or volcanoes, oceans that they had never seen before. So this was a way that they were able to educate themselves and never step foot out of their country, out of their village. And so this will create a big conflict with the monarchy and the Catholic Church because, he's telling things that the Catholic Church had never really wanted. I'm not going to say they never really wanted out there, but the Catholic Church was really bent on keeping knowledge there. Like, we want knowledge right here. We want to keep knowledge contained. And Diderot said, I want everybody to have the knowledge. Thomas Hobbes will believe people are naturally cruel and selfish. He says that people will naturally fall into a life of violence if not controlled by laws, and that government should be an absolute monarchy in order to command obedience. Not a fan of democracy. Um, he says that the only way to completely have control over masses is to have monarchy. John Locke, he disagrees with Hobbes. He says people have natural rights, and that is life, liberty, and the right to property. He did not agree with absolute monarchy. He says the purpose of the government is to protect rights, not take them away. He insisted God bestows power, not monarchs, and his views will be shaped by other leaders, especially Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson. He didn't want to get locked into someone's ideas. According to Locke, the government needed to follow the natural laws of the people to protect their rights. If it failed to do so, the people should have the government overthrown. And a lot of his ideas are found in the Declaration of Independence. Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued that against a monarchy's divine right to rule. He said that they did not have a God-given right to rule. He said that if you had to have a monarchy, they just didn't have a divine right to rule. But he liked the idea of people having a right to choose their leaders. He said people are born free, but they have their rights taken away when they believe that the monarchy and church can make decisions for them. He believed that people will make a social contract and agree to be governed. Now, what that means is that, like, when we go and vote, that is our social contract. We agree to be governed that way. Adam Smith, he is a Scottish philosopher. He supported the idea of something called laissez-faire. Laissez-faire is a French term that actually means let the people do what they want. But in this case, it applies to an economy. It says let the economy develop naturally. Don't overtax a business. Adam Smith's government under laissez-faire says that it protects citizens from invasions, it defends them from injustice, and it takes care of public works needed for trade. So, for instance, if we need to keep roads in good condition for trade, we do that. But that's it. That's all a government does. Now, in 2020, that's kind of hard to do. In 1781, it wasn't that hard to do. And that's basically what the governments did back then. But it's as a country grows, it has to form and grow as the people do and as the country do. So, it would really be hard to only have a laissez-faire government today. But in the capitalism country that we have, we could kind of go back to let the economy develop naturally and not overtax businesses, a lot of businesses like they do. Also, a laissez-faire government does not interrupt the development of the economy, regulate it, or interpret it. I think that's right. Or interfere. I'm sorry, interfere. Now, what happened this past summer when we had the pandemic hit, he would have said, you do not shut the economy down, you do not shut the government down. But it was important that we did so because we had to control this virus. So, I mean, again, he's in the 1700s. He wouldn't have ever had any idea of what we were facing, so many years later. He also believed that individuals pursue their own economic self interest, everyone benefits. And he's considered the father of capitalism. All right, so as an overview of what we'll talk about in the next several weeks, monarchs and enlightenment. There will be a lot of monarchs who start embracing these ideas, but there's no solid line on who does and who doesn't. And even if they do start embracing new ideas such as religious toleration and free press, they're going to strengthen control in other areas. I'll give you an example. Catherine the Great of Russia, she really very educated, brought in books upon books upon books, brought in Diderot and talked to him over and over again about the Enlightenment and his ideas. And he would tell her, say, hey, these are some ideas I have. And she's like, oh, that's great ideas. I like it. And then he said, but you got a lot of poor people. Why don't you share your wealth? And she was like, why would I do that? So even if they did embrace new ideas like religious toleration or free press, they'll strengthen their control in other areas, such as building a bigger army or taking control away from Parliament. This is going to lead to revolutions. Revolutions in England, Russia, and France, and America. We're going to see all of those. And all of those revolutions have to do with all of this new idea coming through in the Enlightenment. All right, again, I kind of rambled there for a minute. Sorry about that. But these notes are pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, let me know, email me, and I'll see you guys soon.